The In Search of America project began as a quest to find answers to a single question. And that question was, is this all that America is about? And that question came out of repeatedly hearing, like we all have, that Americans are so divided and we hate one another, and on and on and on. And one night I was on assignment, and I was in Mississippi, and I was in a little mom and pop diner. And there was a flat screen TV, and it had a news channel on, and I don't honestly remember which one it was. But they were having a panel discussion, they called it, which was tantamount to taking 10, 12 feral cats, putting them in a cardboard box, closing the lid. And at the end of this panel discussion, the moderator graciously summed it all up to let us know that America was irreparably divided, and that basically we were in the toilet. And I'm paraphrasing to condense down his long diatribe. And at that moment, I asked myself again, but almost out loud, is this all that America is about? And I didn't have the answer, and I really thought about it this time. Instead of just asking it and blowing it off, I didn't have the answer. And so I started over the next couple of weeks, I began to ask family members, and they all said, I guess so, that's all we hear. I began asking friends, I guess so, that's all we hear. I started asking people on the street, and most kind of just ignored me. But those that answered said the same thing, pretty much as, I guess so, that's all we hear. And I thought, there has to be more to this. There has to be. My gut was screaming. And then after days of commiserating, probably weeks, that voice in my head said, Dave, you bonehead, you're a photojournalist. Why don't you go find out? And so the short of it is I decided to take a year off and travel around America with no predestined route and see if I could find the answers to this question. And so I did. So 4.5 years later, and over 300,000 miles driven, I found the answers. And to be honest with you, I found the answer really on the first thing that I photographed. But what I found is that, yes, there are Americans that hate other Americans. There are Americans that want all Muslims eradicated. There are, and it goes on and on and on. But they are a minority, and we're being led to believe that they're a majority, but they're not. And what I found after all of these travels, and my travels, again, did not take a predetermined route, nor did it take a circuitous route that just kind of drove around for, a short period of time and come home. The route the routes, multiple routes that I drove repeatedly because, and again, what separates this project from all of the other projects that have ever been done in looking at America, whether it was a written novel, written book, or a photographic book. This project, I lived with people. I broke bread with people. I spent considerable time, and as far as time, I mean days, weeks, months at times, with these people. I worshiped with these people. I was invited to sacred native ceremonies with people. I got to know people as people. And these people were from all walks of life, and they were from all religious backgrounds, all ethnic backgrounds, and all political backgrounds. And yet, not once did I encounter anyone that showed any hatred towards me or bitterness towards me. And there were some that in the beginning were skeptical, but once we sat down to talk, those barriers went away. And what I found is that America is truly a society of unity, the desire for unity. And it may not always be apparent, and it may at times not be there where we're looking. But the majority of Americans truly want unity. They want to get along with one another. The other thing I found is that we all share a commonality, and that commonality is fear. Now, our fears are different. Some fear losing their jobs, some fear losing their way of life, some fear losing their culture. It goes on and on and on. And the fears cause people to react adversely. But once they start to understand the basis of their fears and realize that the majority of their fears, now some of their fears are dead on, but some of their fears are based on misperceptions and misinformation or lack of information. And again, there is so much hope. There are so many people in this country that are doing things to spread hope, to spread joy, to spread love, and without asking for anything in return. It's just what they do. It's just who they are. And again, this project started out as a quest to find answers to that single question, and I did. But what I found more so, and more importantly, I believe, is that I found a country, a society that is, again, hopeful and is desiring of unity. And the other thing I found is that the majority of people that I spoke with, they didn't care that we disagreed. And many times I had conversations, long conversations with people. We vehemently disagreed, but respectfully disagreed. And this is where I found that the majority of people, if not every person, but I'd say the majority of people want, and this isn't just in the United States, this is worldwide, they want their voices to be heard. They want their voices to have significance. And that doesn't mean that they want to be agreed with. They want their voices and their opinions and their thoughts and their feelings to be heard and respected. And again, if you don't agree with them, they're fine with that as long as you disagree respectfully. And in every conversation I had with people, again, I lived with people. People invited me into their homes to stay, and I would stay, for days on end. And over the period of this 4.5 years, there were some people that I lived with on and off that totaled probably 2 or 3 months. And in every conversation we had, respect was foremost, at the forefront of the conversations. And again, there were a lot of things that I talked about that they disagreed with vehemently, but they disagreed respectfully. And so again, I found that America is a place of great hope, of great unity, and a great desire to be this cohesive country, once again. And the example I want to give you when I said that the very first thing I photographed showed me that America wasn't divided. And that was, it was actually an assignment as I was starting this project. And it was to cover the 50th anniversary of the Bloody Sunday March in Selma, Alabama. And I went, and on that one day, the celebration lasted over 3 days, but on Sunday, the final day, the day of the actual celebration for that momentous event in our history, by 11 o'clock, give or take, maybe noon, they had estimated that there were over 20,000 people gathered on one street, the main street, a 2-lane street that crossed the historic Edmund Pettus Bridge. And it took people, that group of people, it took them about 6 hours to make their pilgrimage walk across the bridge because there were so many people. And they stood so physically close that most were touching one another. And within that group of people, of 20,000 plus people, there was not one incident over that 6-hour period. In fact, from the very early part of the day, I started photographing at 6 a.m. There was not one incident of anger, of outrage of any kind, of anything negative. Everyone got along together. And within that crowd of the 20,000 plus people, I can assure you that I would say every ethnicity was represented from what I saw in that group of people. Every religious belief was more than likely represented in that group of people. And more than likely, again, from what I saw, every lifestyle was represented in that group of people. And yet everybody got along together. They marched together for one common cause, to pay homage to such an event that changed everything in this world. And so again, America is a profound and amazing place. It's an amazing place to be a part of. It's an amazing place to live. It's an amazing country that I'm proud to say I'm a member of. And so as you look at the images from this exhibition, hopefully your heart will be filled like mine was, with this sense of hope and joy and unity.